Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that is honestly just as brutal as it is thought-provoking. We're looking at Anurag Pushpam's incredibly striking sci-fi novel, Sophisticated Humanhood. Right off the bat, that stark silhouette against the visceral splash of red, it totally sets the tone for what we're getting into today. Because you see, this isn't just your standard tale about the future. It's a really deep, completely unflinching look at the fragility of our own morality when we're pushed to the absolute brink. So, as we go through today's story, I want you to keep one really chilling question in the back of your mind. What happens when the struggle to survive forces us to lose our humanity? This right here is the central premise, the core hubris to horror arc that totally defines Pushpalm's dystopian world. It basically asks us to look at the dark cost of pure survival. When all the rules of society just burn away, what exactly is left underneath? Okay, let's get into it. Section 1. A world in collapse. We're dropping right into the early 22nd century here, and the geopolitical landscape is, well, it's an absolute nightmare. A devastating global war is raging. Resources are incredibly scarce, overpopulation has hit a critical mass, and human greed has quite literally set the planet on fire. And you can see how this environmental collapse just beautifully yet tragically mirrors the societal collapse. Historically, Mongolia was famous for having 4 distinct seasons and these abundant, beautiful pastures. But by the 22nd century, the Gobi Desert has aggressively expanded northward. The permafrost is drastically melting, and a staggering 96% of the country is now just this arid desert wasteland. The climate devastation has transformed the once land of the eternal blue sky into a harsh, bizarre, and incredibly unforgiving landscape. Now, amidst this burning world, the ultra-wealthy are doing exactly what you'd expect, looking for the nearest exit. Back in August of 2105, a secret meeting takes place among Russian elites. We're talking prominent politicians and billionaire businessmen like the Kartov and Stolov brothers. They gather using incredibly advanced 3D holograms, basically plotting their escape from the very global war they likely helped instigate. Because, of course, they have the money, right? And they have the tech. So they decide that the sparsely populated, albeit devastated land of Mongolia is their absolute best bet for a safe haven. Which brings us to Section 2, the Mongolian safe haven. With their vast wealth, these elites basically just buy their way across the border in this highly coordinated escape route. They bring their families to what they fully believe is a secure location away from the front lines. They use completely automated planes, so no pilots required, and land in really isolated domestic airports like Rench and Nuhue, just to avoid detection. Finally, they secure these luxury villas in the capital, Ulaanbaatar. And the contrast here is just staggering. Think about it for a second. While the rest of the world is burning and people are dying in the billions, these elites are literally taking their kids to museums, eating local delicacies, and signing 6-month leases on vintage government properties. It is absolutely peak hubris. But as you might guess, you can't outrun a world war forever. The sudden presence of these high-profile Russian refugees definitely attracts the attention of their adversaries. So a foreign defense officer contacts the Mongolian minister, Tuxultai, and issues a completely terrifying ultimatum. Expel the refugees, or we will drop a bomb and annihilate Mongolia. Period. Minister Tuxultai tries to stand his ground, fiercely asserting Mongolia's sovereignty. He famously declares, "I don't care about those politicians. I just care about my country." As you can imagine, the tension skyrockets. The elites scramble to relocate to an even more remote area, Govasumbur. But spoiler alert, they're entirely out of time. Section 3. Annihilation and the Metatron. Literally, before the elites can even pack their bags, the adversary makes good on their threat. A devastating bombardment instantly wipes out the entire capital region of Ulaanbaatar. In just a fraction of a second, the naive natives of Mongolia, along with almost all the escaping elites, are incinerated. That hubris of buying safety, reduced to ash. Yet miraculously, there is a survivor, and it's entirely due to an incredible piece of 22nd century tech called the Meditatortron. Now, this is a capsule-shaped meditation chamber that wealthy families used kind of like how we use air conditioners today. It features ultra-strong glass, pumps in fresh oxygen, and even uses artificial sunbeams for health and muscle stimulation. Well, 11-year-old Ivanek, the son of the billionaire Kartov, just happens to be inside this very chamber when the bomb hits. The meditator shatters, sure, but it actually shields him from the deadly blast.
Now, real quick, before we follow Ivanek out into the ruins, we need to understand another piece of crucial sci-fi lore that becomes super vital to our story. It's called the orbital flag. Basically, this is a massive celestial hologram. Advanced lasers project a country's flag way up into the exosphere, making it visible across entire nations in the night sky. Keep this in mind because this massive symbol of national power is soon going to become a desperate, glowing beacon of false hope for our survivors.
So the clean, ordered, sophisticated world the elites thought they controlled, it has completely vanished. Instead, Ivan X steps into this blood-splattered, chaotic reality. He emerges from the broken Meditatron into a world of grayish-brown smoke, burning debris, and poisonous ash. He's just an 11-year-old boy, suffering from severe burns, entirely alone in a destroyed world. As Ivanek wanders through this wasteland, literally digging his burning face into the sand for relief, he hears a woman screaming. This is Vyzhimira. She's a Russian doctor who is actually also saved by a Metatron, but tragically lost her husband in the blast. She's covered in blood, heavily pregnant, and completely shattered by grief. When she cries out to the sky saying, "I challenge the world, there's no God," it reveals a mind that is fracturing under incomprehensible trauma. And guys, this heavily foreshadows the terrifying break from reality she's about to experience. Section 4. The Harsh Journey North. Realizing pretty quickly that staying in the irradiated ruins of Ulaanbaatar means certain death, Vyzhimira and little Ivanek form this incredibly fragile alliance. Guided only by the glowing light of the Russian orbital flag up in the night sky, they begin a grueling, primitive trek northward toward the Kovsgol province and the Siberian taiga. They're stripped down to their absolute most primal instincts. I mean, they're digging into the moist ground with their bare hands just to find sips of muddy water. They survive by chewing on raw leaves and flowers that end up making them violently ill. For a brief, fleeting moment, they pass through a lush, untouched Mongolian forest, which gives them a tiny illusion of peace, right before they are thrust into the brutal, freezing reality of the taiga. And this is where their physical deterioration accelerates at a terrifying pace. Day 1 in the taiga brings these howling, freezing winds. Day 2 brings heavy snowfall with absolutely zero food available. By day 3, the starvation is so severe that when a bird falls dead from a tree, they desperately attempt to revive it, and when it dies, they are forced to eat its raw flesh just to survive another night. That tainted raw meat causes Vyzhimira to get severely sick. And right there, in the dead silent, freezing snow, a full month earlier than expected, she goes into labor. She gives birth to a baby boy in literally the most hellish conditions imaginable. This agonizing moment pushes her already incredibly fragile mental state right up to the absolute brink. This brings us to the climax in Section 5, the loss of humanity. This is exactly where the story shifts from a bleak tale of survival into pure, shocking psychological horror. With a newborn infant to feed and her own body failing, Vyzhimira's maternal instincts become entirely warped by starvation and trauma. Endless starvation means her body simply cannot produce milk. The baby starts turning blue and faints from hunger, which drives her into this hysterical, blind rage against the world. Then, in the dead of night, something massive and warm licks the crying baby's head. By dawn, they find the terrifying paw prints of a massive Siberian tiger. The psychological breaking point has officially been breached. Vyzhimira is no longer a rational doctor anymore. She is a desperate, cornered animal. And this leads us to the devastating twist. It's a look at what happens when the rational human mind completely shuts down, when base instinct just totally overtakes reason. Exhausted and hallucinating, Vyzhimira watches as 11-year-old Ivanek playfully puts the baby's tiny finger in his mouth. In her psychotic broken state, her brain misfires. She believes Ivanek is trying to eat her child. So without a single second thought, she leaps onto the boy like a wild predator and strangles him to death. The boy who somehow survived the literal annihilation of an entire country is killed by his only protector. Snapping back to reality and realizing the absolute horror of what she's just done, Vyzhimira completely loses her mind. She grabs her infant and flees blindly into the snowy taiga. Eventually, by some miracle, she stumbles upon a surviving Mongolian tribe, but just as she finds them, they all look up, and the glowing Russian orbital flag in the sky, it simply blanks out. That ultimate symbol of hope is gone. It signals that total global annihilation is complete. Absolutely no one is coming to save them. But the ultimate horror of this story is actually a quiet, devastating one. The starving tribe, needing sustenance themselves, ventures out and brings back food to share with their new guest. The meal, it is the body of a little boy partially eaten by a tiger. Vyzhimira instantly recognizes Ivanek, and with tears of blood in her eyes, trapped by her own desperate need to keep her infant alive, she is forced to consume the very child she murdered. Which brings us to the haunting thesis of this entire explainer, captured so brilliantly in this final quote. To save the world, humanity should be saved first. I mean, what good is survival if the act of surviving strips away everything that makes us human in the first place? The elites, they thought they could buy their way out of the apocalypse, but in the end, they were reduced to the very primal savagery they thought they were so far above. It leaves us with a truly provocative thought. If pushed to the absolute edge of starvation and terror, how sophisticated is our humanhood really? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.